Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Tianan and in today's video I'm going to be talking about all the books that I want to read for Polarthon. If you don't know what Polarthon is, it is a week-long readathon happening in the first full week of February, and I believe that the date of this readathon is the 7th of February until the 13th of February. It is hosted by the lovely Jade over at JD Ray Reads, who is of course the queen of polar fantasy, and this readathon does tend to focus more on your snowy, icy, magical polar fantasy reads. Saying that though, there are some exceptions. The prompts can be tailored to fit the majority of books that you'd want to read, but there is one specific prompt during this readathon that you need to fulfill, and that is to read a polar fantasy. I will have Jade's announcement video linked down below, so please do make sure to check out that video first if you want any more information on the readathon itself. I think this is my third time participating in Polarthon now, I'm not too sure, but this is a readathon that I love. I also enjoy my polar fantasy books, and the community always comes together for this readathon, and I just end up having the best time participating, so I've decided to do so once again this year, and I am definitely being ambitious. So for this readathon we have 5 prompts. Now you don't necessarily have to read 5 books, you can double up on certain prompts. However, I have decided to try and read a book for every single prompt. Not gonna lie, I'm not sure how this is gonna go because I have been in the worst reading slump throughout January. I've only finished one book and that is making me nervous going into this readathon. However, I have chosen books that I've wanted to read for a while. I've tried to get a range of different books as well, just so that I don't get bored reading the same type of story, and I have also decided to switch out the format as well. So essentially I've done every single thing that I can to make sure that I can succeed in this readathon, and I'm honestly so excited to get started. So without further ado, let's just dive into the prompts. So for this readathon you have 2 paths that you can choose from. You have the Explorer's path and the Arctic Animals path. And after looking at all the different prompts and seeing which books I can fit in where, I have personally decided to go for the Explorer's path. The leader of this path is the wonderful Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, and his deputies are Becca from Becca and the Books, as well as Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction. We do have a graphic for this readathon as well, which I will pop on screen now, and the aim of this readathon is to complete all 5 prompts so that you can reach the top of this icy mountain. As you can see, the first prompt we have is to read an adventure story, and for this one I've decided to go for a book that I don't physically own, but that one is Ember and the Ice Dragons by Heather Fawcett. Now this is a polar fantasy middle grade about a girl who used to be a dragon. Her adoptive father, though a powerful but accident-prone magician, decides to turn our main character Ember into a human girl to save her life. Unfortunately, Ember's growing tendency to set things aflame is making it too dangerous for her to stay at home in London, and so she is shipped off to her aunt's research station in Antarctica. When she gets there, she discovers that Antarctica is home to the winter glass hunt, which is an annual tradition in which rare ice dragons are hunted for their jeweled scales. And when Ember finds out about this, she is so furious that she decides to join in on this expedition to try and sabotage it from the inside. This sounds like such an amazing book. I cannot wait to read this one. It's one that I will actually be listening to the audiobook for, as I don't have a physical copy for myself, but the audiobook is available to me on Scribd, and so that's how I've decided to consume it. It is 8 hours and 47 minutes long, but when I listen to audiobooks I do tend to listen to them at 2 times the speed, which means that this should ultimately take me around 4 hours and 20 minutes to read. One thing I am apprehensive about though is that this book is written by Heather Fawcett, and if you've been following me for a while you'll know that I read Even the Darker Stars by Heather Fawcett last year, and I really did not enjoy that one. I didn't get on with the writing and the character development, so I am a little apprehensive diving into this book. However, because it's a middle grade rather than a YA story, I do feel like I will be able to get on with her writing a lot better. The next prompt is to read a book with a cold word. Now, I am stretching this a lot because the book that I've gone for is One by One by Ruth Ware. Now obviously, One by One is not a title that has a cold word in it. However, on the back of this book we do have a load of blurbs from different authors, and the first blurb says, "The sense of dread deepens as the snow falls in Ruth Ware's tensely plotted and deliciously cast alpine thriller." So there we have snow and alpine, which are 2 words I would definitely associate with the cold, so I am stretching this a tiny bit. However, if I find out that this is unacceptable and completely against the rules, I can just use Ember and the Ice Dragons for this one as well and double up on the prompt. So it's not really the end of the world, but this is a book that I had on my January TBR. I still haven't managed to get to it, but really do want to, and I don't know if you can tell by the cover, but this book does take place in a snowy setting. So in this one, I believe that a group of shareholders decide to go on a retreat to the Alps to discuss the development development of a new app that they've created, and at stake is a $1 billion deal that could work in favour of some, but maybe not all people involved. And so obviously tensions start running high within this group, and they all decide to split up in one way or another, which, let me just say, you should never ever split up. Don't split up. Stay together as a group, please, because nothing good ever comes from splitting up. As we see here, when an avalanche occurs, this group is ultimately stuck in this lodge, and when one member of the group goes missing in the snow, the rest of them have to kind of come to terms with the fact that someone may be resorting to murder to get what they want. This just sounds so good. If you can't tell, it is an adult thriller, and I do tend to fly through those pretty quickly, which is obviously great for a readathon. So I have high hopes for this one. However, the same case as with An Ember and the Ice Dragons, I have read a book from Ruth Ware previously, which was The Turn of the Key, and I unfortunately didn't love that one, which I do feel like is an unpopular opinion. I don't know what it was about it, but I just didn't feel like I got on with that book. And so again, I'm a little bit apprehensive diving into this one. However, I've heard a lot of great reviews about this. As I mentioned earlier, I love my polar fantasies, but polar settings in general, and so I'm hoping that this will redeem Ruth Ware for me. The next prompt is to read a book with a foiled cover, and I actually had a really hard time choosing a book for this prompt. However, I did find one that I've been interested in for the longest time. It's always a popular book when Polarthon comes around, and I really want to get in on that hype. The book I've chosen to go for is The Polar Bear Explorers Club by Alex Bell, and I don't know how well you can see, but this book does indeed have foiling on the cover. It has beautiful blue foiling, and even though it's not overwhelming on the cover, as you can see here, once I start to turn it around, you can see the stunning foiling on it, so it definitely counts, and I'm really happy that it does, because I bought this book for Polarthon last year or the year before, I want to say, and I've obviously never gotten to it. This year though, I am determined to give this one a go. I do also have the audiobook available to me on Scribd, which is probably the way I'm going to consume this story. However, we'll see what happens during the week. I might want to pick it up physically, but the option is there for me to have it as an audiobook as well if I want to listen to it on my commute to and from work or on my dog walks as well. In this book, we follow our main character Stella, and she joins the Polar Bear Explorers Club on an expedition to the Icelands. On this journey, her eyes are open to a world of danger, adventure, and snow pirates. And not only that, out in the icy wilds there are giant yetis, magical golden geese, terrifying carnivorous cabbages, and important new friendships to be made. This just sounds like it's going to be so fun. What on earth is a carnivorous cabbage and why is it in this story? I have no idea, but I'm very excited to find out. And I think that this is just going to be the perfect book for me, where I can pick it up and lose myself in it and just have the best time. As I mentioned previously, I've heard nothing but amazing things about this series, and I cannot wait to finally start this first book during this round of Polarthon. The next prompt is to read a book that features icy magic, and for this one I've gone for The Bright and the Pale by Jessica Rubinkowski. This was a book that was featured in a Fairy Loot box a few months ago now, and I've been interested to read it ever since receiving it. However, I was saving it for Polarthon specifically because I knew I would want to read a book like this during a polar fantasy readathon, because this is an amazing sounding polar fantasy book. I am just going to read you the synopsis for this one though, because off the top of my head I can't quite remember what it's about, but it says 17-year-old Valeria is one of the only survivors of the freeze, a dark magical hold not mountain unleashed on her village. Everyone, including her family, is trapped in an unbreakable sheet of ice, so icy magic. Ever since, she's been on the run from the Tsar, who is determined to imprison anyone who managed to escape. Valeria finds refuge with the Thieves Guild, doing odd jobs with her best friend Alec, the only piece of home she has left. That is, until he is brutally murdered. A year later, she discovers Alec is alive and being held against his will. To buy his freedom, she must lead a group of cutthroats and thieves on a perilous expedition to the very mountain that claimed her family. Only something sinister slumbers in the heart of Nott, and it has waited years for release. Inspired by Russian folklore, Jessica Rubinkowski's epic fantasy debut is a thrilling page-turner with romance, tragedy, magic, and monsters that will stay with you to the very end. That sounds like it definitely has a lot going on. I'm also a bit nervous about the fact that we do get so much plot reveals in the synopsis itself. I think some of that should have been held back maybe, but nonetheless I am very excited to dive into this one. I have a feeling that it's going to be a very fast read, and again, that's what I need for a readathon. I do just want to quickly quickly mention as well that whilst I was on the Goodreads page for this book, I noticed that the author has put some content warnings for this, so I will just get the page up and list them off for you guys just so that you're aware of all the content warnings going in. So it does just say that content warning for death of a family member, discrimination, childhood trauma and work camp. So if any of that subject matter is triggering to you in any way, please do not pick up this book. I honestly wish that more authors put content warnings in their books. I personally am not really affected or triggered by anything. However, I am aware that a lot of people are. So if there are any authors watching this, please do everyone a favour and include some content warnings in your book if need be. I think it just gives people a heads up and then they can choose whether they want to read the book or whether they are not in a place to do so at that point in time. Moving on though, this is going to be my 4th book for Polarthon. I'm hoping I'm going to love it, but we'll see what happens with it as the readathon goes on. And then the last prompt for this readathon is of course to read a polar fantasy. Now I do own a lot of polar fantasy novels. I do have a lot on my shelves on my own TBR, but I've decided to read a book that isn't on my TBR and is one that I don't own. This book though is one that I've heard amazing things about, mainly from Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction and recently Jade from JD Ray Reads, who is the host of this readathon, and that book is The Raven and the Reindeer by TJ Kingfisher. Once again, this book is available for me to read on Scribd. It's not an audiobook, it is an ebook format. However, I just want to read this book and I don't really care how I consume the story. All it says here is when Goethe's friend Kate is stolen away by the mysterious Snow Queen, it's up to Goethe to find him. Her journey will take her through a dangerous land of snow and witchcraft, accompanied only by a bandit and a talking raven. Can she win her friend's release, or will following her heart take her to unexpected places? That is such a brief synopsis, but I'm so glad of it in one way because I do really want to dive into this book not really knowing anything, as I feel like that's just going to give me the best experience reading it. As I've previously mentioned, both Ashley and Jade really love this story and they are both booktubers that I trust. I've had so many amazing recommendations from them and this is another one that I'm hopefully going to absolutely love. This is only a short book. I think it's about 260 pages, so again it shouldn't take me too long to read. Hopefully I can read it in one sitting, which would be lovely, but I just have a feeling that this is going to be one that I fall in love with and I just cannot wait to get to it. And so here we have my TBR for Polarthon. Now it does look a lot less once I hold my physical copies up, but bearing in mind I will have The Raven and the Reindeer on here as well as Ember and the Ice Dragons, which takes me up to 5 books to read in a week. I'm definitely feeling optimistic about this. I really do want to complete Polarthon and read 5 books. However, if need be, I will swap some out. I will make sure that some of them fit 2 prompts just in case I can double up, but I really don't want to. I would love to finish 5 books in the week, but if not, that is fine too. Please do let me know what you thought of my TBR, and if you're taking part in Polarthon as well, please do let me know which books you're reading down in the comments. As I mentioned at the start of this video, I love Polarthon. I love that it brings the book community together, and polar fantasies are some of my favourite books as well. So I cannot wait for this. I'm so excited. I'm really happy that I've now planned out my TBR as well, and I honestly wish we were starting tomorrow, but we do have another week to wait, but that might hopefully give me some time to finish out some of the books that I'm in the middle of currently. If you've made it this far into the video, please do leave me some snowy emojis down below. Whilst you're down there, please don't forget to click the like button if you like this video and the subscribe button if you like to see more content from me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. It truly does mean the world to me, and I will see you soon in my next one. Goodbye!